he was young. This is about the past simple. What about the past perfect? Try to remember that we use the past perfect to refer to an action that happened before another action. For example, Jane went to Thornfield Hall after they had offered her a job there. So the first action that they had offered her a job, then the second action that Jane went to Thornfield Hall. Another example, we didn't reach a solution to the problem until we had discussed it. So first we discussed it, then we reached a solution. Now let's check these exercises. The first exercise here is to match the words and the definitions. You have 5 words here: cruel, governess, housekeeper, orphan, and servant. Pause the video and give yourself more time to think about the answers. Okay, the first one, cruel. Cruel means, yes, as we said before, it will be letter D, unkind and hurting others. Governess. Governess, it will be, yes, letter A, a woman who teaches children in their home. Housekeeper. Housekeeper. The answer is letter C, a servant who looks after the whole house. Orphan. Orphan. Letter B, a child whose parents are dead. And the last one, servant, of course, it will be letter E. Servant means a person who works for people in their house. The next exercise is to complete the sentences with the past simple passive form of the verbs in the box. Just past simple passive. You have some words here or verbs like ask, give, send, take, and teach. The first sentence. Children from rich families space at home by a governess. Don't forget that we will use the past simple passive form. Children from rich families at home by a governess. Yes, we will use the verb teach, but it will be, the answer will be, children from rich families were taught at home by a governess. Number 2. I spaced a lovely big cake on my last birthday. The answer, I was given a lovely big cake on my last birthday. Number 3. The books space into the classroom by a few boys. The answer, the books were taken. The books were taken into the classroom by a few of the boys. Don't forget that we use here past simple passive form. Number 4. In 19th century England, many children spaced to boarding school. The answer, in 19th century England, many children were sent to boarding school. And number 5, we spaced to help clean the garden outside the school. So the answer here, we were asked to help clean the garden outside the school. The next exercise is to circle the correct form of the verbs. Before Mrs. Reed had allowed Jane to leave the room, Jane became or had become ill. A doctor visited or had visited Jane before and had told Mrs. Reed that it would be better if Jane went to live at a nearby school. The girls were or had been called at the school because the head teacher spent or has spent no money to keep it warm. After Jane advertised or had advertised for a job in a newspaper, she received or had received a reply. Now let's check the answers. Before Mrs. Reed allowed Jane to leave the room, Jane had become ill. A doctor had visited Jane before and had told Mrs. Reed that it would be better if Jane went to live at a nearby school. The girls were called at the school because the head teacher had spent no money to keep it warm. After Jane had advertised for a job in a newspaper, she received a reply. Let's go to the third exercise. Complete the sentences with the correct past tense of the verbs in brackets. The first one, past simple or past perfect. The first one, I space in brackets read the book before I space see the film. So the answer, I had read the book before I saw the film. Number 2, Mrs. Reed space be angry with Jane because she argued with John. Yes, Mrs. Reed was angry with Jane because she had argued with John. Number 3, Mona, remember, she watched a TV program about online learning last week. So, Mona, the answer, Mona remembered she had watched a TV program about online learning last week. Number 4, I not play football before I meet Hamid. The answer, I hadn't played football before I met Hamid. Number 5, choose the correct answer. In the first sentence here, Mr. and Mrs. Osman employed a governess or housekeeper to teach their children at home. Of course, who teaches children at home? It's the governess, yes. Number 2, Hania never knew her parents because she is a or an governess or orphan. Yes, orphan. Number 3, that bully was very cruel or very strange to the smaller boys, so they told the teacher about it. Of course, bully was very cruel. Number 4, the housekeeper or the orphan showed the guest to her room. Yes, the answer, the housekeeper. Number 5, Jane Eyre sent or was sent to live at Lowood School. Jane Eyre, it will be passive, was sent to live at Lowood School. Number 6, a brave young man saved or was saved the old man from the fire. It's an active sentence, so a brave young man saved the old man from the fire. Number 7, Ahmed was told not to arrive late. Of course, someone told them not to arrive late. So the answer here, Ahmed was told not to arrive late. Eight, unlikely, my car didn't repair or wasn't repaired yesterday. My car, passive, wasn't repaired. And number 10, Adele was taught by Jane Eyre. So the answer, Adele was taught by Jane Eyre. The next exercise, find and correct the mistakes. Read carefully and find the mistakes and correct just the mistake. Okay, the first sentence here, when I returned home, my mother has already prepared lunch. So the mistake here, has already prepared lunch, and the correct answer had already. When I returned home, my mother had already prepared lunch. Number 2. I don't go to the club until I had finished my work. So the mistake here, don't, yes. And the correct one, I didn't go to the club until I had finished my work. Number 3. Before Jenner became a governess, she has been a teacher at Lowood School. So the mistake here, yes, the verb has been, and it will be had been. Before Jenner became a governess, she had been a teacher at Lowood School. Number 4. First, I have revised the lesson, then I did the exercise. So the mistake here, have. And the correct answer, first I had revised the lesson, then I did the exercise. Number 5. As soon as I knew my friend was sick, I had visited him. Read carefully this sentence here. Yeah, the mistakes here, knew and had visited. And the correct answer, as soon as I had known my friend was sick, I visited him. Number 7, complete the sentences in the past simple or past perfect. Use the verbs in brackets. The first sentence here, Mrs. Reed made Jenner stay in a bedroom because she fight in brackets with her cousin. Mrs. Reed made Jenner stay in a bedroom because she had fought with her cousin. I told you before to pause the video, okay? Number 2. Mrs. Reed decided to send Jane away to school because Jane, in brackets, become ill before. So the answer, Mrs. Reed decided to send Jane away to school because Jane had become ill before. Number 3. After Jane had arrived, she, in brackets, realized that the headmaster of at Lowood School was a cruel person. The answer, after Jane had arrived, she realized that the headmaster at Lowood School was a cruel person. Number 4, after she, in brackets, advertised for a job, Jane received a letter. The answer, after she had advertised for a job, Jane received a letter. And number 5, there, in brackets B, a fire at Thornfield Hall, and Mr. Rochester said that Grace Poole had started it. The answer, there was a fire at Thornfield Hall, and Mr. Rochester said that Grace Poole had started it. Exercise number 8. Decide which expressions we use to agree and which expressions we use to disagree. Write A for agree and D for disagree. You have here 14 expressions. Read them carefully to decide which ones we use it to agree and which ones we use to disagree. The expressions are, that's true, I would say the opposite, I would go along with that. Number 4, I'm completely against. 5, I'm not so sure. 6, I couldn't agree more. 7, I agree. 8, I don't agree. 9, that's not always true. 10, you are right. 11, I suppose so. 12, I don't think so. 13, I disagree. And 14, exactly. You can write them down. to think about which expressions we use to agree and which we use to disagree. Now let's check the answers. In the first column here, we write the expressions we use to agree. You have 7 expressions here. To agree, we can say that's true, I would go along with that, I couldn't agree more, I agree, you are right, I suppose so, exactly. And to disagree, you can use these expressions here, 7 also. I would say the opposite. Number 2, I'm completely against. 3, I'm not so sure. 4, I don't agree. 5, that's not always true. 6, I don't think so. And 7, I disagree. Now let's use these expressions in this dialogue here. You have a dialogue between Walid and Fadi, and I ask you to complete the conversation using some expressions from the previous exercise. Okay. Walid said, have you finished revising for the English test? Fadi, yes, I revised with Tariq at his house last night. It's easier to revise with other people, isn't it? Walid, no. I would say the space. I work better alone. So, which expression you think we can use it here? Yes, I would say the opposite. I work better alone. I write the words down, cover them, and try to remember them. It's a good way to learn vocabulary. Fadi, I, space, so. But why don't you draw pictures of the words? So the expression? Yes, I suppose so. But why don't you draw pictures of the words? You can remember them really well if you do that. Walid, I'm not so space, but that's probably because I can't draw very well. So we can use this expression here. I'm not so sure, but that's probably because I can't draw very well. Fadi, how do you practice saying words if you work alone? Walid, I listen to the word online and then repeat it. It's very easy. Fadi, you are space. It's easy. So we can say here that you are right. You are right. It's easy and you know the word is said correctly. Walid, exactly. Fadi, there are lots of good ways to remember things, aren't there? Walid, that's space. You must choose the way. So we can use here this expression. That's true. You must choose the way that is best for you. And then Fadi answered, I couldn't space more. I couldn't agree more. And it means that he agreed to Walid's opinion. Thank you very much, with my best wishes.